Welcome, and gently allow your eyes to close as you settle deeply into the comfort of your space. Taking a slow, quiet breath in and letting it softly go. Tonight, we are going to travel far away from the noise and the rush of the familiar world, to a place tucked away in the deep, quiet folds of a forgotten mountain range. Let your mind drift, leaving behind the heavy thoughts of the day, as we journey together into a valley draped in mist and surrounded by ancient, towering pines. Imagine a small town, a place named Blackwood Valley. It is a town that seems to exist out of time, cradled by the gentle, sloping earth and sheltered beneath a canopy of evergreens that have stood silent watch for centuries. The air here is always cool and crisp, carrying the sweet, earthy scent of damp fern, crushed pine needles, and the faint, comforting aroma of wood smoke drifting from old stone chimneys. Breathe in that pure mountain air and feel the stillness of the valley settling into your own chest, a deep, abiding calm. Blackwood Valley was a place of simple, gentle rhythms. The main street was lined with beautiful, aging Victorian storefronts, their brick facades softened by climbing ivy that turned a brilliant, bruised crimson in the autumn. There was a small bakery, where the warm, yeasty scent of fresh bread would spill out onto the cobblestones just before dawn, mingling with the morning dew. There was a quiet library, smelling faintly of dried paper and vanilla, where the dust motes danced slowly in the amber shafts of afternoon sunlight. The people of this town lived quiet, contented lives. They knew each other's names. They knew the sound of each other's footsteps on the wooden boardwalks, and they moved with the slow, unhurried grace of those who have no need to rush. It was a perfectly peaceful place, a haven of normalcy and quiet comfort. The days bled into one another like watercolor paints on a wet canvas, soft, blurred, and beautiful, accompanied only by the distant, soothing murmur of the Silver River that wound its way through the edge of town, its water rushing smoothly over worn, gray stones. It is fascinating how true change rarely announces itself with a loud noise or a sudden disruption. The most profound transformations in our lives, and in the life of a place, often begin as a whisper. A subtle shift in the wind, a change in the temperature of the air, a new melody playing so softly in the background that you hardly realize you have begun to hum along with it. The change in Blackwood Valley did not begin with an invasion or a sudden upheaval. It began with an arrival so quiet it was almost imperceptible. It started at the end of a long, golden summer, when the light in the valley begins to soften and the shadows grow long and sleepy. A small group of people arrived in the town, seeking refuge, they said, from the chaotic, hurried world beyond the mountains. They purchased the old, abandoned estate on the high ridge overlooking the valley, a sprawling property of overgrown gardens and a beautiful, dilapidated glass greenhouse. They called themselves the Meadowlark Collective, though the townspeople simply referred to them as the Gentle Strangers. They were a quiet, unassuming group, moving with a deliberate, almost hypnotic grace. They wore clothes in soft, muted tones of oat, sage, and pale gray, colors that seemed to blend perfectly with the foggy mornings and the fading twilight. When they spoke, their voices were low and melodic, carrying a profound sense of calm that seemed to wash over anyone who listened. At first, they kept mostly to themselves up on the ridge, clearing the overgrown brush with slow, rhythmic movements, restoring the old glass house pane by pane. But soon, they began to drift down into the town. They would visit the market to buy seeds, or sit in the small park by the river, simply watching the water flow. There was something undeniably mesmerizing about them. They never seemed to experience anger, or worry, or fear. Their faces were smooth, relaxed, and perpetually graced with a soft, knowing smile. When a local shopkeeper would complain about the coming winter or a poor harvest, the gentle strangers would simply nod, their eyes full of deep, placid understanding, and speak softly about the beauty of surrender, the peace of letting go of individual burdens, the warmth of becoming part of a quiet, unified whole. Slowly, very slowly, their absolute tranquility began to seep into the soil of Blackwood Valley. It was like a warm, heavy blanket being pulled over the town, a comforting weight that made you want to close your eyes and simply drift. The townspeople, weary from the quiet but persistent struggles of ordinary life, found themselves drawn to this profound peace. The local baker began to bake in complete silence, his movements mirroring the slow, deliberate grace of the strangers. The lively chatter in the town diner gradually softened into a hushed, reverent murmur, and eventually into long stretches of shared, comfortable silence. The strangers began offering evening meditations in the park beneath the old oak trees. They did not preach, nor did they demand. They simply sat in perfect, unified stillness, breathing together as one single organism. The rhythm of their collective breath was a lullaby, a deep, resonant wave of calm that rolled through the evening air. One by one, the townspeople began to join them. At first, it was just a few curious souls, sitting on the edges of the grass. But the feeling of being near the collective was intoxicating. A complete release of the self, a melting away of all personal anxieties and fears. It felt like falling into a deep, dreamless sleep while still awake. There is a strange, profound beauty in giving up control, in allowing yourself to be carried by a current much stronger and much quieter than your own will. As the autumn leaves fell, blanketing the cobblestone streets in shades of copper and gold, the boundary between the town and the collective began to blur and dissolve. The gentle strangers were no longer visitors. They were the new heartbeat of the valley. And the town of Blackwood Valley, once a place of individual lives and quiet, ordinary struggles, was slowly, willingly, slipping into a deep, mesmerizing trance. A peaceful, secret surrender, wrapped in the cool mountain mist, as the entire valley learned to breathe, exactly as one. As the last of the golden leaves surrendered to the earth, the chill of winter began to weave its way through the valley. But there was no harshness to this cold, only a crisp, clarifying stillness that seemed to echo the quiet growing within the people. The morning frosts arrived, painting the windows of the old Victorian homes with delicate, crystalline ferns. Inside those homes, the morning routines had softly changed. The familiar clatter of breakfast dishes, the hurried footsteps of people preparing for the day, all of it had smoothed out into a slow, deliberate grace. Families moved through their homes with the quiet synchronicity of a flock of birds turning in the sky. No words needed, no instructions given. When the residents of Blackwood Valley stepped out into the frosty air, they no longer walked with their heads down, lost in their own private thoughts. Instead, their eyes were soft, gazing gently ahead, their breathing perfectly aligned with the person walking beside them. You could stand on the corner of Main Street, near the old bakery that now smelled lightly of incense and warm baking bread, and watch the town move. It was a beautiful, hypnotic dance. The baker, the postman, the teacher, all moving to the same invisible metronome. There is a profound relief in forgetting who you are supposed to be, in letting the heavy, exhausting cloak of identity slip from your shoulders and simply becoming a seamless part of the whole. The gentle strangers, who were now simply neighbors, had introduced new rhythms to the valley. The evenings were no longer spent behind closed doors, illuminated by the cold, flickering light of television screens. Instead, as the sun dipped behind the snow-capped peaks, casting long, violet shadows across the valley floor, the townspeople naturally drifted toward the center of town. The town square, once a place of bustling weekend markets and loud conversations, had transformed into a sanctuary of shared silence. They brought lanterns, casting a warm, amber glow that pushed back the winter night. Hundreds of people, sitting shoulder to shoulder in the soft snow, wrapped in thick wool blankets, radiating a combined warmth that completely defied the frost. In the center of it all, the original newcomers sat, their presence acting as a gentle anchor for the drifting minds of the town. They didn't preach, they didn't demand. They simply offered a sound, a low, resonant hum that started deep in the chest and vibrated through the frozen earth. One by one, the townspeople joined the hum. The sound wrapped around the buildings, vibrating through the wooden beams of the old tavern, humming against the frosted glass of the street lamps. It was a sound that bypassed the thinking mind completely, settling directly into the bones. It felt like being held, like returning to a state of absolute primordial safety, where no harm could ever reach you. As the weeks turned into months, the physical boundaries of the town began to soften, just as the mental boundaries had. Picket fences, once sharp and freshly painted, were quietly dismantled, the wood repurposed for communal fires that burned continuously in the square. The locks on the heavy oak doors grew stiff from disuse. There was nothing to protect, nothing to hide, because there was no longer a mine and yours. There was only a vast, comforting ours. If a home was cold, neighbors would gather there, bringing warmth and quiet companionship. If someone felt the faint, lingering echo of an old sorrow, they did not have to speak of it. The collective felt the slight discord in their shared rhythm, and gently, without a single word, surrounded them in a cocoon of harmonious energy until the sorrow dissolved like mist in the morning sun. Among the guides, there was one whose presence felt like a deep, weighted blanket settling over the mind. They called him the Weaver, though names had become increasingly irrelevant in the valley. He had kind, tired eyes that seemed to hold the quiet weight of 1,000 lifetimes, and a voice that was barely more than a whisper, yet carried across the silent square with perfect, bell-like clarity. When he spoke, it was not to instruct, but to soothe. He spoke of the heavy burden of the ego, the endless, exhausting cycle of individual desire, and the sweet, eternal rest of the unified mind. His words washed over the townspeople like a warm tide, gently pulling away the debris of their past lives, leaving only smooth, untouched sand behind. It is a strange and mesmerizing thing to witness a town fall deeply asleep while its people are still walking, still breathing. The winter snow fell heavily, blanketing Blackwood Valley in a thick, pristine layer of white that muffled all remaining sound. The outside world, with its loud, frantic demands and endless worries, felt millions of miles away. The winding roads leading out of the valley were completely snowed in, but no one noticed, and no one cared to clear them. The town was a snow globe, sealed off and perfect in its peaceful isolation. Within this white cocoon, the transformation deepened. The individual memories of the townspeople, their childhoods, their personal triumphs, their private, quiet failures, began to softly fade away. They were not violently erased, but rather, they washed away like footprints on a shoreline, smoothed over by the rhythmic, rising tide of the collective consciousness. When a woman named Sarah looked at her hands, she no longer saw the hands of a seamstress who had lived in the valley for 30 years. She saw the hands of the collective, instruments of a single, vast entity that was entirely at peace. When she looked at the man sitting across from her in the snow, she did not see her neighbor. She saw a beautiful reflection of herself. They shared the exact same calm heartbeat, the same slow, measured breath. The need for conversation evaporated entirely. To speak would be to shatter the perfect, crystalline silence that held them all together in its gentle embrace. They communicated through presence, through the subtle, shifting warmth in the air, through a profound, intuitive knowing that connected every single mind in the valley. As the deepest part of winter settled over the mountains, the air grew so still it felt like spun glass. The hum of the town was constant now, a subtle vibration that existed just beneath the threshold of hearing, felt only in the quietest, deepest chambers of the heart. The valley was dreaming a single, unbroken dream. The gentle strangers had woven their threads so completely through the fabric of the town that there was no longer a seam to be found. Blackwood Valley had become a singular, softly breathing organism, resting peacefully in the cradle of the snowy mountains, waiting for the final, beautiful layer of frost to seal them entirely into their endless sleep. The snow continues to fall, not as a storm, but as a gentle, continuous dusting of pure white, covering the slate rooftops, the quiet streets, and the motionless cars parked in driveways. The final layer of frost arrives just as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in soft, fading hues of lavender, rose, and deep, bruised indigo. The cold outside is absolute, crystallizing the moisture in the air into millions of tiny, floating diamonds. But inside the valley, there is only an infinite, radiant warmth. It is the warmth of 1,000 souls, burning softly together like a single, well-tended hearth fire, safely insulated from the bitter winds of the world. Chimneys no longer release plumes of smoke into the crisp air, for the cold has ceased to be something to fear or fight against. It is simply a blanket, a beautiful crystalline barrier that separates Blackwood Valley from the loud, chaotic world beyond the mountain pass. The roads leading in and out of the town are gradually erased by the drifting snow, smoothing out over the black asphalt until there is no trace of human passage. The sharp angles of fences and mailboxes are softened into gentle white mounds, leaving only the pure, unbroken sweep of nature returning to its quietest, most ancient state. Time, that rigid, demanding master of the waking world, simply stops flowing here. The analog clocks on the walls of the old diner, the watches resting lightly on wrists, the digital displays on abandoned screens, they all lose their meaning. The townspeople no longer measure their existence in hours or minutes, but in the slow, rhythmic pulses of their collective heart. A day might pass, or a century. It feels exactly the same. It is a state of perfect, suspended grace, where nothing needs to be done, nowhere needs to be reached, no expectations remain to be fulfilled. Beneath the heavy, snow-laden roofs of their homes, the people of the valley rest. They are gathered in living rooms, on soft woolen carpets and deeply cushioned chairs, sitting side by side in the gathering twilight. Their eyes are closed, their breathing perfectly, beautifully synchronized. If you were to walk among them, you would feel no fear, only an overwhelming oceanic sense of peace. You would see the faint, serene smiles resting on their faces, the complete absence of tension in their shoulders, the gentle, relaxed curling of their fingers, as they surrender entirely to the stillness. They are wandering together through the vast, luminous landscapes of their shared mind. In this inner world, the boundaries of individual memories have dissolved like watercolors left out in the rain, blending together to form a beautiful, vibrant tapestry. A childhood memory of a golden summer afternoon becomes a shared joy. A feeling of deep, untroubled comfort becomes a collective blanket. There is no darkness here, no sorrow, no lingering shadow of the anxieties that once drove them through their frantic days. The subtle hum of the gentle strangers has become the very foundation of their being, a beautiful, resonant chord that supports and lifts their every thought. They are free from the burden of self, free from the exhausting weight of individual choice and isolation. They have surrendered to the immense, comforting ocean of the whole. Even the gentle strangers themselves, those quiet architects of this beautiful stillness, have melted seamlessly into the collective consciousness. There are no longer leaders and followers, no longer guides and travelers. There is only the valley. The movement, if such a rigid word could ever describe something so completely woven with love and quietude, has fulfilled its purpose. It has dissolved itself into the perfect peace it created, leaving behind only the pure, resonant harmony of a town that has chosen to dream forever. Sometimes, a lone traveler on the high mountain highway might pull over to look down into the great basin where Blackwood Valley rests. They will see nothing but a pristine sea of white, a bowl of pure, untouched snow bordered by ancient, silent pines under a canopy of brilliant winter stars. Standing there in the freezing air, They might feel a sudden, inexplicable wave of calm wash over them, a heavy, sweet drowsiness that makes them want to close their eyes, to lean back against the seat of their car and rest for just a little while. They do not know that they are feeling the very fringes of the valley's great dream, the soft, magnetic pull of absolute tranquility reaching out through the mountain air. And as the night deepens, the town sinks even further into its profound slumber. The snow absorbs every stray sound, every tiny vibration, leaving nothing but a silence so deep and pure it feels like a physical embrace. It is a silence that invites you, the listener, to let go of your own burdens. It asks you to release the tight grip you hold on your own separate identity, to let your worries drift away on the cold mountain breeze, to simply float into the vast, quiet expanse of the night. Imagine that beautiful, heavy snow falling gently over your own thoughts. With every flake that lands, a worry is covered over. A tension is smoothed away. A loud voice in your mind is gently quieted. You are safe in this winter stillness. The air around you is cool and clear, but within you, there is only that same deep, communal warmth, that glowing ember of peace that connects every resting mind in the quietest hours of the dark. There is nothing left to decide. There is no one you need to be. You can simply allow the soft, rhythmic breathing of the valley to become your own. Inhale deeply, taking in the cool, still air, and exhale slowly, letting go of everything that ties you to the waking world. The boundary between you and the quiet night is dissolving, melting away like delicate snowflakes on warm skin. You are becoming part of the stillness, part of the great, unbroken silence that holds the mountains, the valley, and the sleeping town. Let the heavy, comforting blanket of the snow settle completely over you. Let the subtle, beautiful hum guide you down into the deepest, softest layers of rest. The valley is dreaming, a slow, peaceful, eternal dream, and it is welcoming you softly into its embrace. Sleep now, drift now, into the beautiful, endless quiet, where everything is perfectly still and perfectly at peace.